How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the heck is going on in the universe. This week's going to be kind of interesting, to say the least. My chaotic neutral self is excited for it because Venus opposes Mars exactly, and Venus starts her square to Jupiter. And during this time, Venus is also going to go right over the North Node. So there's a lot of intentions being set, there's a lot of truths being revealed, and there's definitely a lot of fears being faced this week. Because after this week, we have Mars going retrograde and the full moon in Capricorn. So this week is kind of like a really juicy build-up to that, climatic Mars retrograde. And the reason I say that is because Venus is going to start its opposition to Mars. It started its opposition to Mars, actually. However, it's exact at 8 degrees and 9 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday. And now with Venus being in Leo, when we're talking about what we value, we're talking about relationships, we're talking about love, we're talking about our passion, and we're looking at Leo right now. We're looking at all this sun stuff, all this solar light energy type stuff, really is the best way to put it. And as Venus goes through this sign, she's under a lot of pressure. I mean, she's squaring Uranus, she's going to start her square to Jupiter, she's starting her opposition to Mars. There's a lot of pressure being put on Venus right now. And Mars is also under a lot of pressure. He has no good aspects, just a square to Jupiter, square to Uranus, and an opposition to Venus. And when we have all of these planets making, it's kind of like everyone's got guns pointed at each other right now, can deal with a lot of pressure. However, this week is really going to emphasize on Venus and on Jupiter, and here this is why. On Monday, starting off, we're going to have Mercury opposing Pluto, it's starting its opposition to Pluto. So when we're talking about Mercury and Cancer and the way that we communicate, what we're really thinking about, how we're really talking, our internal dialogue, what we're telling ourselves, it is going to be a little bit more reserved. We're going to want to be a little bit more protective of what our soft spots are, and it could be easy to become defensive. However, as it opposes Pluto, this is where you want to take that opportunity where can you really trust, be vulnerable without putting yourself out there to where you're just going to get yourself hurt. Where can you really, Pluto, it's kind of like, it's just a little splash of something. It's not like Mercury opposing Saturn, which was like, all right, how are we communicating? How are we thinking? How do we need to address this? With Mercury opposing Pluto, it's just a little splash of like change, a little splash of like an underline. It's kind of like when you watch a TV show that's like really good and they'll have something in like the first or second episode happen and you're like, what was that? And then it shows up like later on in the season, you're like, oh, okay, I thought that wasn't me that was just seeing that. That's like Mercury opposing Pluto, or really anything with Pluto. Now, with Mercury opposing Pluto though, there's this underlying theme of, okay, what do we need to change? What do we need to feel? How do we need to address it? How do we need to really confront the things that we really need? And Pluto's offering a really solid, I don't want to say a solid foundation, but allowing us like, hey, here's an opportunity to really make some changes. It's really going to give you guys some bigger results later on down the road. But anyway, Venus conjuncts the North Node on Monday. So with Venus being in Leo, it's kind of like, all right, I know what I want to feel. I know what I'm really valuing. It's kind of like stepping up that self-love game and that self-appreciation stuff. And it's conjunct the North Node though. And we're about to go into eclipse season. We're about to have all this stuff start getting stirred up. And as Venus conjuncts the North Node, this is kind of like, man, like, where's your heart taking you? What are you passionate about? Where do you need to go? What do you need to see? And with Mars being in Aquarius, and it's not retrograde yet, it's under a lot of pressure where it's like, I don't know how to do it though. There's so many different options. There's so many different ways to see things. It's all coming from, here, here, and here. And it's like you have all these different, it's Aquarius. You have all these different tools of the trade. You have all these different ideas and ways of perceiving things. However, Mars is slowing down. Mars has been at 8 degrees for like 2 weeks. He's not moving like he wants to. And Jupiter's putting pressure on him. Uranus is making things wild. And Venus is staring at him right in the face. It's kind of like Mars almost has nowhere else to go. And so that could feel like where you're at right now during this week with Mars being in Aquarius. It's like there's so many options, I don't know where to go. I don't know how to move forward. And with Venus being in Leo, this is where it calls upon you to really go, what do you want? Like, what does that inner child soul need? Like, what fulfills you? What is that passion? I know that's very, almost hallmarky, but when we're talking about Venus and we're talking about, hey, what do we really value? What are we really, how are we relating to others? How are we really sinking our teeth in with, like, I don't want to say a desire, but what's a good word for that? I can't think of one at the moment. But with Venus being at the spot, the direction that we need to be going in, and this is the North Node in Leo right now, like, all right, how can we love ourselves? How can we step up that leadership role? How can we really ignite that inner light that we have and really become, you know, who we're supposed to be and who we really are on that most authentic level? Venus is right here saying, dude, follow this way. Like, don't be afraid to go with where you want. Don't be afraid to take on the things that you want. And yes, there are a million different ways to do things. Yes, there are so many options, and it feels like you don't have any energy to move forward. But you have to install that like feeling inside of you before you could take that action. And with Mars going retrograde, that's when things are going to be a little bit easier, because it's going to be like, well, fuck this and fuck that. I'll do whatever I want. With Venus being in Leo, just put that heart energy there. And then on Monday, the moon's going to go into Virgo, and it's going to have this grand trine with Saturn and Uranus. So great day to really go, okay, let's look at the specifics. How can I really detail and analyze this and get it kind of under control? This is going to be kind of like the analysis paralysis is going to come up huge during the moon going into Virgo. But if you really take all of this Venus and Leo stuff and take all of this fixed energy, you know, that's squaring and opposing each other, if you take that, channel it to the moon in Virgo, it's trining Saturn, it's trining Uranus, man. What do you got to do? You know, what do you got? Do you got to write a list? Do you have to organize this? Do you have to, you know, kind of take down notes inside your head? Like, whatever it is, lay it out on paper. Get it organized. Get it situated to where you understand clearly what it is that you need to do or where it is that you need to apply yourself. So then on Tuesday, Venus is still conjuncting the North Node. Moon opposes Neptune, where again, it's kind of like the Mercury-Pluto thing. When the moon opposes Neptune, I always like to look at it as kind of like, you kind of see past the bullshit real quick with Neptune and Pisces kind of going, woo, you know, like putting magic charm on us and everything like that. Moon and Virgo is like, okay, that was a lie, that was false, like, this is what's actually real, this is what we actually got to focus on. So Tuesday's really not too big of a thing. It is going to also be trining Pluto, the moon will be, and Mercury is going to start trining Jupiter as well. That's actually going to be exact, I mean. And as Jupiter trines Mercury, when we're talking about this Jupiter and Scorpio stuff, which is going to be really big by the end of the week when the moon enters Scorpio and it conjuncts Jupiter during all of this Venus-Mars stuff, the biggest thing is while Mercury trines Jupiter, Mercury being in Cancer, what are we telling ourselves that we need? Where are we being closed off and reserved and too shelled? Where do we need to speak from vulnerability? How do we need to communicate our needs? And as it trines Jupiter, Jupiter and Scorpio is kind of like, I'm giving like all of that stuff that you're going to be able to communicate and speak and say from the bottom of your heart this week, all coming from Jupiter and Scorpio. So really understand that energy, like path, I guess is the best way to say it. Because Jupiter and Scorpio is really bringing up some fears and is really bringing up some darker stuff this week. And I say that because on Wednesday, once the moon enters Libra and it squares Saturn and squares the sun, it's going to kind of be like, okay, now I need to make a decision. Where do I want to put my balance? Where do I want to put my value? Do I want to go this way? Do I want to go this way? Like, the sun is opposing Saturn this whole week. I forgot to mention that earlier. And with the sun opposing Saturn, it's kind of like, all right, we're in the midst of change. We kind of have to do something different and really open ourselves up. And as, the moon enters Libra and squares the sun and Saturn, that's when it's going to be decision time. That's when it's going to be being comfortable in your decision, making it just, making it right, and understanding the fair play. It's kind of like if you follow that hard stuff with Venus and Leo, and you really, you know, go for what it is that's like really calling out to you in that sense, the moon in Libra is going to be nice. You're going to feel very situated and very like, okay, I know where to apply this. I know how to delegate this. Then on Thursday, Cancer season begins. Woo! Yeah, things getting real. And Venus opposes Mars exactly at 9 degrees. And the moon's going to be squaring Mercury and Pluto. So Cancer season begins on Thursday. Venus opposes Mars exactly at 9 degrees. So it's all of a sudden things get real. All of a sudden it's about facing like, okay, what direction do you need to take? It's not about, you know, finding the right one. It's about finding the one that's going to feel the best for you. You may not, it's kind of like Mars is about to station and go retrograde. We're still going to learn how to do things. We still got a whole lot of learning to do. But as Venus is in Leo and opposes Mars exactly, man, like, go for it. Doesn't matter if you don't know how to do it. Doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if you can't understand it or if it's too much. Go with where your heart is. I'm telling you right now, that is a huge, huge deal. And as Cancer season begins, and this brings up a lot of emotional stuffs, this is going to bring up a lot of where we need to be nurtured. Where do we need to take care of ourselves? How can we be the essence of nurturing? How can we be the essence of, this is what I need. This is how I take care of myself. This is how I take care of others. This is how I bring things in. This is how I feel. This is how I relate. This is how I protect. Like all that Cancer stuff, like mom on steroids, like when her son, like, you know, like I always like to think of Cancer like as like the mom with the son, and the son like trips or something when, you know, some other kid trips him and she just gets all crazy protective. Like that's that Cancer energy. And as the sun goes into Cancer, things are going to get a little bit real, and it's going to be starting to like kind of flow out of us. Like all that Cancer energy of like, oh, this is what I need. I got to protect and, you know, not be vulnerable. It's just going to be spewing out of us. But Venus is in Leo. Don't be afraid to be a leader. Don't be afraid to step up. Then Friday, Moon enters Scorpio, squares Pluto and Mars. Big deal, because that's when it's kind of like, like Moon's in Scorpio, like we're really doing this, we're really committed, we're really going for it. This is crazy and insane and a lot of emotions, and it's going to bring up a lot because it's going to square Mars, and it's going to be like, well, what do I do? Where do I go? Like, you know, there's so many different ways, but this has got to be the right way, and this is how I got to really feel. And then this weekend, as the Moon conjuncts Jupiter and as it squares Venus and Mars, and the biggest thing with this, guys, is with Venus opposing Mars, that's one whole story. But they're in the middle of a T-square with Jupiter. And again, this Jupiter and Scorpio stuff is the forefront this week. What is your truth? What do you believe? Are you ready to really take out all of that nasty crap that you still kind of like left on the back burner? All the stuff that you're like, all right, this clearly doesn't work. This is clearly not what I want to believe. This doesn't align with my truth. Are you ready to really step into that role and be like, this is what my truth is? This is what realistically I want. This is what I want to have. This is what I want to believe. This is what I want to see. Jupiter and Scorpio is asking you to face all those fears that comes with taking all of that on. And that's what's going on this week, guys. And then Sunday, Mars is going to be at like 9 degrees in a couple minutes, Aquarius, and starts its little station until we go retrograde into next week. So that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching all my videos and liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. If you are on my Patreon, thank you so much for supporting my channel and doing everything that you can and watching all my stuff, because I super appreciate you guys. So thank you guys again, and I'll be seeing you next week.